slowly becoming more at ease and discussing grief. Because of that, grievers feel safer to share their feelings and experiences. I have seen a massive movement on social media for grief magazines, support groups, including support groups over death by suicide or pet loss and parent loss and child loss, and writing on grief topics. It's so much more prevalent than it used to be. And mental health and processing having feelings are also being emphasized. It is the perfect time to add to the growing conversation. For me, it was also the ideal time to write The Sum of Grief in 2025, as I was facing the heaviest grief math equations. It was my bucket list year. And it also felt like the year I would die thanks to grief math problems. It was the year I turned the age my mom was when she died and hopefully outlived her. I decided to write it as it happened while also reflecting on the last 27 years. While the world is recognizing the value in being vulnerable and facing grief, I was able to lend my voice to the conversation. There are a few things that people get wrong about grief in general. First of all, we tend to look at the stages of grief as if they're something that we check off and that we move through, that we're done with. We experienced sadness and we bargained and we were angry and now we're done. But that's not how it works. In fact, the stages of grief were originally written for the person who's dying. So not the bereaved, but no matter who they're written for, they're not a checklist, because there isn't a timeline for grief. It doesn't end. We grow with it. My book demonstrates that grieving openly for a long time doesn't mean that I'm stuck, or if you are grieving a loss that happened yesterday or 30 years ago, it doesn't mean you're stuck. It means that we are growing with our grief and we are self-aware about the complex feelings of grief. This book should validate those same experiences for others and allow them to feel safe, saying, I'm not done grieving either, because I still love and miss the person, and there is nothing wrong with that. As I was writing and researching this book, I was surprised that it seemed as though people who lost their same gender parent were more in tune with grief math than people who lost the opposite gender parent. Everyone I spoke to, whether it was polling on social media or talking with friends who admitted to doing some form of grief math, was a motherless daughter or a fatherless son. That doesn't mean sons whose mothers died or daughters whose fathers died don't use grief math as a coping tool, but the people I chatted with all lost the same gender parent. My hope is that hearing about my experience with grief math will give grievers of all types space to explore grief math for themselves. Perhaps they'll find comfort in doing the math too. As I was writing The Sum of Grief, I expected it would be hard to reflect on my mom's death and my early grief in such detail and to reflect so publicly. That turned out not to be the case at all. It wasn't hard. What was difficult and painful was coming to the realization of exactly how lonely and abandoned I felt, particularly from the adults closest to me, and how those feelings impacted friendships and attachments to people and my decisions and behaviors. It was really hard to see how grief affected me in hindsight. A lot of people will resonate with this book. While motherless daughters may be the obvious ideal reader, and they certainly are, I think anyone who lost a parent when they were young, people grieving a significant loss, including the loss of their child or their sibling when they were young, and people who are grief professionals, including chaplains, therapists, social workers, will particularly find value in this book, and I believe they'll connect with it. I believe they may see themselves in it. They may see their friends, patients, people in their care with it. It may also give them new language and coping tools. While the ideal reader might look like somebody like me, a motherless daughter I think there are countless grievers who will feel validated, seen, and heard. And they may also be given some new tools or words to tools that they were already using when they read The Sum of Grief.